Hey, folks, welcome back. Welcome to my daily podcast here on Open Mouth Studios. And I got a question recently from on Crackpipe about what books I might recommend to learn jazz. And I would say, books is only one of the ways to acquire knowledge. There's lots of other good resources and probably more important ones. The most important, of course, is listening, just listening to good jazz. And you'll pick up a lot that way. Trying to figure it out yourself, doing transcriptions or, just picking out chords or melodies. And studying with a teacher, I think, is very important because a teacher will give you immediate feedback on what you're doing wrong. And, I read a lot about jazz and tried to learn it all on my own. But when I started taking lessons, I was about 30, 31, jazz lessons, that is. My teacher really brought it all together, taught me open voicings, rootless voicings, kind of had his own system, too. The open voicings were based on formulas, I believe, that were more or less developed at Berklee College. And the rootless voicings, we analyzed them in boxes, as to all the different functions they could have. And so and I've done lots of videos about both of these things, box voicings or rootless voicings and open voicings. That's where you spread the notes out. They sometimes call them spread voicings. But I don't like that term, I'd like open voicings. Okay, the books. This is one I read when I was, pretty young, probably late teenager or something, or early 20s. Improvising Jazz by Jerry Coker. And it's a real good book, but I got to say, at the time, I didn't really take all the information in this book and really put it together. I probably wasn't listening enough, and, I don't know. Sometimes, you read books and you can understand them pretty well if you already know the material. If you don't know the material, they can sometimes be pretty confusing, and that's why I think having a teacher is really important because you can ask questions. Okay, but it's a very good book, and the thing that did really stick with me, he has a whole chapter in this on the diminished scale. And I had kind of worked out the diminished scale on my own. But when I saw it in this book, I said, it's a real thing. I can, use this. I can study it. So another good chapter in here is called Functional Harmony. And I don't think I really understood that chapter when I read the book. But now I do, and it makes a lot of sense. It's a pretty deep topic. Okay, on to a couple other books, and these two are both by Mark Levine or Levine, depending on your persuasion, I guess. This first one's called The Jazz Piano Book. There it is. Yep. And really, he lays it out pretty well in this book. He covers open voicings by starting with 3-note voicings, the bass note, the melody note, and whatever's missing, I guess. And then he goes into some left-hand voicings and scales and pentatonic scales and more voicings and block chords. Latin jazz is in there. Oh, that reminds me, I got one more book I want to share with you. Anyway, that's a very good book. I did learn a fair amount from that book, and the Jazz Theory book, also by the same author, Mark Levine, or Levine, depending on your persuasion. And this is not just for piano players, but he is a piano player, and so I think it's written pretty much from the perspective of a piano player. But I think, a lot about soloing that I think would be useful for, single-note instruments like saxophone and trumpet and stuff like that. The other book, let me see here. Well, now I can't find it. Whoever asked that question, you kind of came to the right place because I got more damn books than you would believe. This book right here, How Learn to Play Latin Piano, by Ricardo Sevales, and I think he's Italian. And it's kind of like a handwritten book almost. It's got a kind of a weird typeset for the actual scores in here. But he gives you all kinds of really good, like Montuno patterns and typical things that Latin piano players do. And I just found this to be a really good book. Some real cool stuff in there. And I don't know if I've ever done any videos about that. I should. Anyway, that's it for here at Open Mouth Studios, daily podcast advice on. No, it's not really. I'm just kidding around. It's kind of a hats off, a little tribute to my friends out there in St. Louis who do a really nice a daily podcast. Peter Martin and Manis, what's his name? Adam Manis. So check that out. Yeah, and I should mention, other good online resources. Of course, I think my channel is the best as far as, learning the nuts and bolts of jazz harmony. One thing I think that's difficult to cover in books is rhythm. And I think one reason why it's difficult to cover in books is because you really just have to listen to it. You can notate it out, but it's just very difficult to sometimes put it actually down on paper the way it actually feels when you do it. So that's why listening is so important. So some other good online resources, I would say Ken Hewitt is really good. Adam Neely has a great channel, but for jazz piano, I don't think you're going to get too much out of it. Other really big channels like Rick Beato I think he's right here in town actually, though I don't know him personally, and he has got lots of good music theory on there, and also Amy Nolte. We're both kind of like Facebook friends and stuff, that kind of thing, and she does some pretty good piano videos, helps you get started, basic concepts and things. Oh yeah, and another channel, and I'm not sure if it's Open Studio or just Peter Martin's personal channel, kind of both of them, I think. But 2 Minute Jazz is really good. That's Peter Martin's thing, and I gotta say, I've picked up some really good ideas from those 2 minute videos. I really like those. All right, that's all I got to say at the moment. Going to get back to work here. Got a few students today. Be sure to give me one of these and hit the subscribe and all that stuff. Thanks.